it's totally fair to tell me that we are too quick to go like extreme when it comes to our sports takes. That we are too quick to call for players to be released or traded or benched, or in the case of coaches, fired, sent packing, what have you, because of a little bit of like downtime, a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of a backslide, whatever the case might be. And you know what? There certainly is something to that. Like, we are increasingly ever more a short attention span society. So it's not a surprise that the way we view sports increasingly mirrors that, right? It can be true. However, there are times that firing a head coach and going in a different direction, even with a pretty successful head coach, is absolutely the right move for your organization, for that head coach, for everybody involved, basically. Like, you could talk about Andy Reid and all the success he's had with the Kansas City Chiefs, and now he's staring down the barrel of winning his 4th Super Bowl as a head coach and truly putting himself into top 5 all-time head coach consideration. But the reality is, when he was in Philadelphia, he won a lot of games there, yes, but for one reason or another, and it would depend on the time and the year, his teams consistently came up short when it mattered most. He was a big game choker. Whether that's entirely fair to put on his shoulders or not doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it was under his watch. And the Eagles, after 2012, moved on. And he went to Kansas City. And the best thing could have happened for both sides, right? Eventually, Philadelphia righted themselves. In a few years, they're winning a Super Bowl. A few years later, make it back to another Super Bowl. And now 2 years after that, they've made it back to yet another Super Bowl. And the Chiefs have become a modern dynasty. Sometimes it's the right thing to do. And to sit there and say, well, that's crazy that you would ever do that. You know, coaches, every coach has a certain shelf life to them. Some are much shorter than others. Others are much longer than others. But having a head coach, like I point to the Steelers and the Ravens as 2 examples of this. Just because your guy has been a head coach for your team for 17, 18 years, that's not exactly the impressive flex that you want to make it out to be, especially if you last won the Super Bowl over a decade ago. It's just not. Oh, they're consistently winning. Who gives a shit? And it's fine until you realize you're not in it to consistently win 10 or 11 games. You're in it to consistently contend for and ultimately hoist Lombardi trophies. And I know it sounds overly simplistic and I'm making it feel like it's a lot easier than it really is. And the reality is, not everybody gets to win one, right? That's the thing, but that's the ultimate goal. And it becomes even more important when you have an elite quarterback. And the Buffalo Bills have an elite quarterback in Josh Allen. And the fact that we are sitting here yet again after another season and another playoffs talking about how the Bills didn't get it done and couldn't even get to the Super Bowl under Sean McDermott, the time has come for the Buffalo Bills to fire him. Now, I fully acknowledge that some folks will think I'm absolutely crazy. You're talking about a Sean McDermott since he got there in 2017. It's 8 seasons at the helm. He's got a .656 winning percentage. He's taken the team to the playoffs 7 of the 8 seasons, blah, 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 blah. The last 5 seasons, teams not only made the playoffs, but won at least one playoff game, blah, 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 blah. Look, I am not saying that Sean McDermott is a bad coach. I actually think he is a pretty good NFL head coach. If he was on the market all of a sudden, would other teams be wanting him in the fold as their next head coach? So certainly. And it would make sense for them to do so. But just because those things hold true doesn't mean that it would be a mistake for the Buffalo Bills to move on. That would be a mistake for them to fire him. Because you have now reached the point here of how many more times do you need to see the same fucking outcome, the same result, to realize it's just not going to happen under this current configuration. .656 winning percentage in the regular season. Fantastic. How many Super Bowl appearances in 8 years? 0. As many as I've had. And there's probably a lot of differences there. But one of the things is I'm not the head coach of an NFL team with an elite NFL quarterback. For the past several years, at least, Sean McDermott has had that in Josh Allen. He's a top-tier elite NFL quarterback. So you have a player that arguably you go into a game, he can match up with or beat anybody in the league at the most important position in the game. And not only have you not won a Lombardi trophy, you haven't even made it to the big dance once to contend for a chance to win it. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Why would anybody in Buffalo, associated with the Buffalo Bills, want him to continue to be the guy and know that his teams, when it matters, are going to fucking gag it down their fucking throats, piss it down their legs? Happening once, bad luck. Happening twice, okay, shit happens. It's about overcoming and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But you start talking about 3, 4, 5 times in a row, you got a problem here, folks. And you're going to say, well, 4 of those 5 playoff runs were ended by the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, they were. So what you're telling me is he's just not good enough to get it done and get over the hump at the end of the day with his own elite quarterback. That's what it comes down to. Like, it's already kind of foolish enough. The Bills have been trying to fight against the wave in the NFL with the younger quarterbacks of putting them in a situation where they've got a young offensive mind as the head coach. You know, McDermott was hired before the 2017 season, so he was there pre-Josh Allen. So like, he did it a little differently here. But at some point in time, you really got to wonder, like, what the fuck are you doing here? The true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting the results to be any fucking different. And what we saw this past Sunday in the AFC Championship game is a replay of so many other playoff performances for the Bills under Sean McDermott against the Kansas City Chiefs. When shit was on the line, the defense, which is supposed to be Sean McDermott's specialty, consistently pisses the game down their fucking legs. Does that mean that Josh Allen always played perfect in these spots or the offense was always phenomenal? Not necessarily. But they certainly haven't been the sole or primary reason that this team lost. What is the primary and main reason the Bills keep losing in the fucking playoffs, especially the 4 times in the last 5 years of the Kansas City Chiefs, is their defense chokes on dicks when it matters most. And even when you want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals a couple of years ago in the divisional round, okay, their defense still wasn't very good. It's just Josh Allen and the offense had a horrible day. Shit happens, right? How the fuck do you not beat the Bengals there? And then every time you get to it, like, it's only your second AFC Championship game appearance. And frankly, if we want to go there, they're damn lucky they even got past the Ravens. If we want to be real, son, like, how much differently would we be talking about the Bills and Sean McDermott and whether or not he should be gone or not if they lost to the Ravens in the damn divisional round? Like, he's a good coach, and his regular season performance is really good. But you don't get to host trophies for regular season games like that. This is not some Mickey Mouse in-season tournament that the NBA creates to try and stimulate excitement, non-existent excitement in a dying game in a dying league. That's not how it works here. What can you point to for Sean McDermott when it comes to the playoffs, and in particular the way he manages game situations, the way his defense consistently performs, that gives any indication that this shit is ever going to change? Like, as much as you say, well, there's still time, who fucking knows? We're now going to be going into 2025. Josh Allen will be in his 8th NFL season. 8th! You're not careful, you're going to fumble fuck away his true peak years on a coach that's not good enough to put this team in a position to get them over the hump. Like, is that what the Bills are playing for here? They're just happy to make it to the divisional round and maybe once every few years you make it to the conference championship game? I would hope not. I wouldn't think so. And some certainly are going to talk about, personnel and, some of what they did this year and the talent that they had, and that's all fine and good, but at the end of the day, there are other teams that deal with injuries and everything else, and you got to find a way to get it done. And when it mattered, Sean McDermott's defense, I don't give a fuck who you want to point to as a defensive coordinator, at the end of the day, it is his side of the ball. That is his expertise. It is his fucking defense. It once again shit the bed against the Kansas City Chiefs. Argue with a wall if you don't think that's true, because you clearly weren't watching the same game that I was and millions of other people were. Good coach doesn't mean he's the guy to get the damn job done, and he's not. And the longer it takes for the Bills to fucking realize that, the longer it's going to take for them to actually be a real threat to win the Lombardi Trophy. It was so striking watching it. And I admittedly, even before the season, I thought this, could be the Ravens year. But I said, as the season went along, I'm like, ooh, maybe the Bills. Like Josh Allen's playing like that type of alpha level. And you basically wasted the best season of his fucking career because your defense, once again, shit the bed. It'd be one thing if Josh Allen was choking in these big spots. It'd be one thing if the offense just wasn't playing well. But even if you want to talk about the offense, on the last drive of the game, we're not putting the ball in James Cook's hands even once. As the head coach, you have the right to overrule that shit and say, no, put our best back in the fucking game. What the hell are you doing? The season's on the fucking line. It's not always about the number of mistakes that we make and the number of failures that we have. It is about the size, the impact, the quality, the scope of those. That's what matters most. And in the big spots, Sean McDermott consistently rolls snake eyes. He needs to go. The Bills won't fire him. And that's whatever, right? And maybe next year they finally get to the Super Bowl. And maybe they actually win it. But if you're looking at it right now, with Josh Allen in the peak of his career, coming off of this phenomenal season that he had, where he's a legit MVP contender alongside Lamar Jackson, would you really go put big money on the Bills to win the Super Bowl next season? If your answer is no, then that tells you all you need to know about Sean McDermott. No disrespect to him, but he's got to go, bro. He could do some other teams some real good. The Bills need somebody that is better positioned to help get them over the hump, because he's not man in the helm as the head coach right now, that's for sure.